We created Free because someone had to stand for the addicts and loved ones of addicts who were suffering in silence, for the spiritual refugees who didn't have a place of belonging. A traditional church model doesn't create space for the conversations we know have to be had. Free is standing with those who are barely hanging on, who are longing for something new. Free is bridging the gap between spirituality and recovery. In this place, God meets us exactly where we are. This is what we stand for.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Free Recovery Community on this St. Patrick's Day weekend. It's not actual St. Patrick's Day, so Cholpa, you can't pinch me because I'm not wearing green, right? That's Tuesday, huh? Wrong. But Cholpa understood the assignment. I think tonight is a night where we can appreciate being here as we see hordes of people drink for no reason other than being drunk, right? And we can celebrate being here. So Free is a community for addicts, loved ones of addicts, and spiritual refugees. We meet together every Saturday night to curiously explore spirituality together. And so if it's your first time here, here's a kind of a rundown of the way things are going to go tonight. We're going to start off just a few quick announcements. Then we'll go into celebrations, just share with each other what good is going on in life. I have a celebration, like 3 different people brought treats tonight. So we have plenty of stuff afterwards to hang out and drink some coffee, have a cinnamon roll or a baked good. And then we'll go into just a quick 10-15 minute recovery themed message. We'll take about 3 minutes to have some quiet contemplation and meditation, followed by a guest storyteller. Joe is our guest storyteller tonight.
Hey, Joe!
I feel like Joe has a lot of like descriptor nicknames, you know, like Boston Joe, or there's another one I'm not going to say.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's a lot of nicknames, and I think that just shows how comforting and warm and loving Joe is. So I'm excited for everyone to hear Joe's story. And then we'll go into heartbreaks, and then we'll close out. So that's what's going to happen.
Sounds good. All right, everybody. Hi, I'm Shelly. I'm a recovering addict, alcoholic. I'm happy to be here tonight. You could see it on the sign when you walked in. There's something really special here that we don't do at Free, and that's shame. And every week we like to say it together on the count of 3. So on the count of 3, we'll say we don't do shame. Ready? 1, 2, 3. We don't do shame. Awesome.
Awesome.
That was loud.
A couple things.
Andy. Yes, Andy. On Monday, I will be taking my CADC test.
She's already finished the interview portion too, so she's locked and ready to go, right? I mean, the internship portion, yeah. I had one, but I didn't know if it was public yet, so we're gonna wait till next week.
Tease.
Tease it. Ray has something.
I'm on my 56th day sober.
Woo!
My name's Matthew, alcoholic. So I'm not sure if this is a celebration yet or not. On Thursday, I have court to get my driving privileges back after 2 DUIs. My sponsor wrote me an awesome reference letter. My friends in AA wrote me letters. I have friends from this program writing me letters. So I'm just it feels good to actually get this done, like an accomplishment, like I'm moving forward, being able to drive again like a normal person. So
awesome. And for the record, I rarely use the Reverend title, but I will for a letter of support for court if you need it. So.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth, alcoholic.
Hey, Elizabeth.
I lost my job in January due to this addiction, and I have a job interview on Monday, so hopefully that goes through.
We have one coming from one of our online viewers. It is from Sorrel. They are celebrating that he leaves inpatient treatment on Wednesday, and he's going to Safe Haven. So he's got those transitions between recovery stages are so important, right? Ed just celebrated, potential one. It's so important that you kind of carry through in a recovery safe environment. So.
Hi, I'm Eric, and I'm alcoholic.
Hey,
and although it's not the outcome I wanted, at least I'm not going to jail, and I have my last court date next Friday.
Woo! She got that good plea deal. I wouldn't know anything about that because I did not.
I was just trying to sit here and be quiet, but God said, say something. So, pretty big list. Woke up sober today.
Woo! We need to clap to that.
Revisited a project of eliminating the old to welcome the new, because I know that my higher power has so much in store for me in 2026 and beyond. And looking forward to my 14-year anniversary, a day at a time, no fronts, on March the 25th.
Woo! just a little one. Okay, perfect. Okay, perfect. Yeah. My size is Rolex and watch, if anyone's curious. Yeah. Awesome. And we're doing this new thing with celebrations and heartbreaks where people can submit them online. So if you go to our website, freerecoverycommunity.com, we can submit heartbreaks. And this is our celebrations, and this is a good one. Ryan is celebrating 3 years. So. It's one of one because it's the first time we're doing it. Yeah. So for the past 3 weeks, so this is the 4th week, we've been talking about something, and it's something that a lot of us don't really love to talk about, and it's darkness. And when we talk about darkness, there's a lot of bad things that have been attached to darkness. People use darkness to shame the color of people's skins or to rank what's good or what's bad. But what we've been talking is about that metaphorical darkness. That darkness that is those challenging seasons or those rough patches, and how they're not always just metaphorical like the night, right? They're those seasons that we can live through that are challenging in life. These are things like the darkness of addiction or the darkness of grief or the losing someone or trying to rebuild the life that's fallen apart, right? A lot of times both our heartbreaks and our celebrations have to do with that. The challenging seasons that often leave us wondering if things will ever get better. And one of the hardest things about navigating these challenging seasons is that when you're inside them, they often feel like they're a permanent state. Like this is just the new way that life is going to be. You lose your job and you think the rest of your life is going to be applying for jobs. Chilpa sent me a funny TikTok saying, I've been applying for the same job since 2016, and now I just show up for an interview with the recruiter once a week, and we just check in. So sometimes these seasons of pain or grief or confusion or lack of understanding just feel like they're permanent. And if you've been there, you know, you wake up with a heaviness. And you go to bed with the heaviness still there. Days turn into weeks, and sometimes weeks turn into months, and it starts to feel like all that life is and will ever be. Like it's your new normal or it's a permanent state of existence. And the book of Ecclesiastes in the Hebrew scripture actually tells us something very different. It tells us that nothing is permanent and life's go in seasons. And if you've been with me, if you've been here enough, you know how much I love the book of Ecclesiastes. It's one of those wisdom literature that's used by Jewish, Islam, and Christian traditions. And it says life doesn't always make sense. We'll leave that to Proverbs. But Ecclesiastes was written by what they're calling a teacher called Quleth. And it's one of the most honest voices in sacred texts. It doesn't pretend that life is going to be simple, and it doesn't pretend that everything works out neatly. It's not the one that says, show up and work hard at your job and you'll get a promotion. Ecclesiastes is the one that says, sometimes you show up and work hard at your job, and the Nepo baby gets the promotion, but you're going to be fine. Ecclesiastes looks at the world and says that life is complicated. It includes both pain and joy. It includes both love and loss. And it includes both celebration and grief. Ecclesiastes 3:1-8 says, for everything there is a season, a time for every under the sun, a time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to harvest, a time to weep, a time to laugh, a time to mourn, and a time to dance. If you've been to a very Christian funeral, you've probably heard this passage before. This poem does not say that life will always be good. It is saying something more realistic, and it's that life often moves in rhythms. And honestly, I think everyone in the room tonight lives in Chicago, right? Right? Anyone from out of town? I told Christian not to be happy all the time, and now he's being dramatically sad on the life moves in rhythms in Chicago. But every winter in Chicago, we know this. So I was in Dallas 2 weeks ago. I landed in Dallas and stepped out of the airport, and I felt the seasonal depression leaving my body. Because every winter in Chicago, and it usually happens in February. February is the highest month for depression for this reason. It feels like this state of gray and cold is going to last forever. We walk outside in the morning and we're like, when did it snow, right? When did it go like this? But there is always this moment that we feel like the winter will never end. Like it's been gray outside for weeks, the cold settles into our bones, and gosh, that wind off of Lake Michigan is like a dagger that can cut through even the most expensive Canada Goose jacket that I most certainly don't own. And we start to believe, or at least in our soul, we might know in our head, but in our soul, we believe that it'll never feel warm again. But every single year around this time, something starts to change. Like the slightly warmer day that we had on Monday, right? It felt like, okay, the winter is coming to an end. I can finally start to feel hope again. And it starts staying lighter out longer, and the snow starts to melt, and people start going outside again. The city comes to life with the dog parks being full and people sitting on patios and people walking instead of Ubering. It's like this long, hard winter is finally starting to thaw. Living in Chicago reminds us of something important, that seasons, though they often feel endless when you're in them, they never actually last forever. The pain you feel today is not the final chapter. The grief you're carrying is not the entire story. The darkness of the night might be real, but there's always a new morning or a new day. It's not permanent. And recovery communities understand this more than most people, and because we've walked through seasons that felt like they would never end in our addiction. We felt trapped by the drink or the drug. We just didn't know how in the world we could possibly get out. The alcoholism and addiction that brought us here felt like they would never end, and we were stuck in a cycle of misery. Even after we put the drinks or drugs down, cravings don't automatically disappear, but regret starts to show up and shame whispers in our ear. And maybe everything doesn't work out the way we had hoped right away. Maybe that driver's license takes a few years to get back, or that legal battle continues. Not everything doesn't get better all at once. But we all have a story of what brought us here, and it's rarely pretty. Recovery teaches us something powerful, and it's that feelings pass, seasons pass, and moments pass. In Buddhist teaching, they actually have a word for this, and it's called impermanence. It's the idea that everything is always changing. Have you ever seen that show, Life After People, on like the History Channel? Yeah, I remember one, and they like track the Queen's corgis. But even these buildings, these things that were here long before us and will be here long after, is not permanent either. So this idea of impermanence that says everything is always changing includes not only our physical world, but it includes our emotional world as well. Joy changes, pain changes, circumstance change, and even the stories we tell about ourselves can change. Recovery communities know this truth very deeply. The feeling that we have right now won't last forever. The person you are today is not the only version of you that exists. Last night I spoke at a meeting, and someone said, "Oh, Seth, you're the one that told me that God loves you just the way you are, but God loves you too much to leave you the same." I didn't remember saying that, but it's true, right? We're always changing, and if we're not changing for the better, we're probably changing in the other direction. But if we stay in the process of continual growth, continual spiritual development, continually working on ourselves, the sun does eventually rise. In 12-step recovery, you hear the phrase a lot that this too shall pass. Not because the pain isn't real, or not because grief isn't real, but because time keeps moving, and even if the pain and the grief stay the same, we learn to carry it just a little bit better. When you live a spiritual life long enough, something incredible happens. Once was unbearable turns into something that can help others. And I've seen this happen over and over again, and I'm sure Joe tonight can share about this too, about how the challenging season in our life, our greatest liabilities often become our greatest asset to help other people. I know the third step prayer, one of my favorite lines is, "Victory over our difficulties will inspire others." It's not may or can, right? Actually, it might be can. But it will inspire others as we travel through these seasons. People who thought that life was over, or they've burned every bridge, or they've ruined every opportunity. But after some time, maybe a year, maybe a month, maybe 2 years, maybe 5 years, maybe 10 years, they start to begin to laugh and love again. They begin to help other people, and they begin living a life that they never thought was possible. And the wild thing is oftentimes those people who've walked through the hardest path become those people who help others the most. The dark seasons don't disappear, but they become the wisdom that we carry to help others. The night might have felt endless, but it wasn't. Last week, Justin's parents were in town. Justin's not here, he usually is. But my boyfriend's parents were in town, and of all the things his mom wanted to do, she could have gone to the Bean or the Shed Aquarium or the Art Museum. I know there's some history museums in town. The one thing she wanted to do was watch the sunrise over Lake Michigan. And one of the most beautiful things about the natural world is the sunrise. And sunrise has this really strange feature to it. The sunrise, it always happens after the darkest part of the night. So right before the sunrise is when it's darkest out. Right before the sun comes up, the sky is still dark, the sky is still heavy, the sky is still quiet, and then something little begins to shift. The horizon starts to get lighter, and then the world starts to glow, and then eventually this starts to rise and brighten the entire area that you're in. The sky even changes color. and suddenly light begins to spill across the world. Jewish tradition actually has a beautiful word for this moment, or a beautiful thought for this moment, and they call it between the nights. It's that thin space. It's that darkness is still present, but light has already begun. It reminds us that transformation begins often before we can fully see it. Change already happens. Change is already happening when the sky is dark. Just because we don't see the sun on the other side of the horizon, it's already getting closer. And everything that looked permanent in the dark starts to look different in the morning. Ecclesiastes reminds us that life works in the same way, with changing seasons, and that the night does not last forever. And some people in this room are in a bright season, right? We got some celebrations going on, right? Some of us feel like things are going great. Maybe we just got the new job. Maybe things are starting to get restored. Things are going well and it feels stable. And if that's you in this season, enjoy it and celebrate. Laugh, dance, do all the fun shit. Because this too is part of a rhythm. But some of us are in a harder season. Maybe you're rebuilding or grieving. Maybe you're just tired. Maybe you're just trying to make it through one more day without picking up. If this is where you are, Ecclesiastes makes a quiet promise that this season will not last forever and that there is a rhythm to life. There is a moment in this story, and dawn eventually does come. Learning to walk in the dark doesn't mean that the darkness isn't there. It means that we trust that the darkness isn't the end. Sacred texts never promise that life will be easy, but they do remind us again and again that mornings do come. Seasons do change, and no night lasts forever. So as we enter into this moment of meditation, I just ask that everyone just sit in whatever stance feels the most comfortable. I like to do my hands open. It feels like some divine energy flows into the palms whenever I do it. And just think about those seasons that maybe seem too hard, and just remember that the new day does always come. table or turn the floor over. Matt is doing our interview today, and he's interviewing Joe. Joe has been part of Free. He travels all the time, so he's not able to be here every week. But he's been part of Free since before we got started. So I want to invite Matt and Joe up.
How's it going, man?
Good. Well, I'm excited to talk to you because we don't know each other too well. But I met Joe probably about a month ago, and you were incredibly warm. So I'm excited to get to know you more. But we usually start, if you could tell us a little bit about your story, what brought you to sobriety, and pretty much what keeps you sober.
Right. Well, I am from Boston originally. Come from a big family, 10 kids, so a lot of chaos, a lot of fighting. I was a shy kid, and then we were sheltered. Then somewhere along the way, I became a, my mom found out I was gay, so she kicked me out of the house. That was probably around 19 years old. And then somewhere along the way, she kicked me out of the house, and she put all my furniture on the side of the house, you know, and my dad was moving it back in again as she was moving it out. Then I became a born-again Christian somewhere along the way, and that was helpful. They took me out of a dysfunctional home environment, and I needed that. And then I discovered meth. So things, I started off working when I was 17 years old, following in my dad's footsteps, and I eventually left that job after 19 years. But I just eventually went to treatment to Minnesota. And then it wasn't until my last treatment center, which was at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, for the first time in a very long time, I genuinely felt loved. And that had a big effect on me because I had a lot of acquaintances before. I remembered that was a new feeling loved. And made me sad because I kind of recognized I didn't have a lot of love up until that point. I moved ahead. I went back to school. I had no real formal education, just a trade school degree. And I went back to school, earned my associates in addiction counseling, bachelor's in political science, and then a master's of public policy. And I do grant writing by contract with the CDC, and I'm on the board of directors for the Wild Onion Market. It's a food co-op in Rogers Park. So that's like a working board because they're still trying to be solvent. I moved to Chicago about a year and a half ago from Minnesota, and I'm having some fun. It was a move for self-care for me, and that's a theme, is recognizing I can put myself first, instead of being a people pleaser. So does that give you a good gist of it?
Yeah, I want to ask too, did you think it was that lack of feeling love that brought you into addiction in the first place? And what brought you out of it? What made you feel the feelings of love again? Was it the treatment center itself, or was it something you did within yourself?
I think what brought me to addiction was I had trouble communicating socially and in certain circumstances, socially, sexually, and when I did drugs,
I'm not saying that I felt love and adoration or when I did drugs. I didn't care. I didn't care. And that gave me a little bit of freedom. So it allowed me to hotwire connections with people. And that's why I did drugs. The feeling of feeling loved, well, I was suspicious of people that said that they would say nice things about me. I was sort of twisting it. They're trying to get my pants. They're just being nice to me, and it's unauthentic. That's doing their job, but it was a feeling. I'm like, they really care. I said I was having concrete evidence that I was feeling loved and cared for. They were going out of their way. And if you're like me, when someone says they love me, sometimes I'm trying to I don't know what that means. But when they do actions, then I can understand that's love.
So, how long have you been sober now? We haven't talked about that really.
November 11, 2013, so 12 years and about 4 months. You know, I went to the Mayo Clinic twice. The first time, I used the day I got out. And I was so ashamed. I stayed out for a year. I said, what a loser. But then I went back.
So we were talking, Seth in his message was talking about dark times, and obviously in sobriety, I'm sure you still have ups and downs because you're human and the rest of us do. So I'm curious what keeps you staying sober, and what do you do to try and find the light if you have a dark moment?
Well, I think the dark sides, it's a judgment call. What if I was to say that my dark sides are my best sides, that are my superpowers? That's spirituality. You know what I'm saying? That's sort of like acceptance, facing my fears. One of the biggest things in my recovery that has been helpful is facing my fears. You know, they say intimacy. Into me, you see. Being honest to people. I was running around Minneapolis killing myself because I couldn't be honest with people. So I think that it's sort of a point of self-acceptance with those dark sides. If I can own my dark sides, you know, I've heard people say this isn't really a program of self-improvement, more than it is a program of self-acceptance. Me accepting me right now. And if I can do that, I can have better relationships. That's scarier than hell. That's scarier than hell for some of us. Because facing our fears is incredibly painful. But once we have the courage to do, and we make certain steps that way, we realize, wow, I have more love, more connection, and acceptance than I haven't even thought would have happened. Why didn't I face my fear sooner?
Yeah, you said something a lot of people I've talked to in sobriety have said is that they've used because they were afraid to be themselves. And without being fully yourself, you never make those real connections, but that's a scary thing to do. So I'm curious if you could go back and talk to your early self and to the people who are newly sober, what is something you would say to them or to your younger self, a piece of advice that you wish you knew then?
That it's okay to be afraid. It's okay to feel different. It's not a weakness. That's my perception. That's my negative judgment. I think to answer your question for a new person is, you know, there used to be this lecturer that was in Minnesota. I used to love this guy. He was John McDougall. And he said, like, if you're in treatment, and if people sometimes are in treatment and they're worried about relapsing, why don't you go to your primary group? What is it that you're not talking about? What is it that you're hiding? Those dark things that we were talking about. And maybe be a little open and honest a little bit, and you'll probably find that love and acceptance.
So being able to own it and let the truth set you free type of.
Well, it comes when you don't feel, when you feel safe. You know, so there's another component of that I wanted to say, but I forgot about it. But it's mostly. So go ahead.
Well, is there anything else you'd want to add to that? Because you have quite a bit of sobriety under your belt, and we all want to hear the wisdom of, is there anything else you could share in terms of how you stay sober, what your practices are?
For me, it was school, the gym, and a sponsor. It was staying busy. And I used to hate the gym. I didn't know what I was doing. I figured it out. We have to go through a little bit of pain to feel good. And if I'm not willing to experience unpleasant things, then that's not adult. School. I heard this counselor in Minnesota. He was a doctor and a lawyer, and he said to me in his office, he said to me, Joe, if you just hang out with recovery people only, I guarantee you will fail. What he meant was, I need to hang around with other groups of people, with regular people. If I just, I think that's what he meant. In other words, I try to do a lot of different things, like volunteer. My first volunteer job was at a museum. It was a lot of old ladies. They just loved on me, and you know, you try to allow it so that people can love you. In other words, let us love you if you don't feel love.
Well, you're loved here very much. So thank you so much. Is there anything else you wanted to add?
Nope.
All right.
Thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you, Joe. Thank you very much, Matt. And now comes time where we talk a little bit about generosity. So generosity is obviously keeps us open, keeps us moving towards hopefully a point in the future where we can have that whole recovery hub here in the city of Chicago. But also generosity is a practice that's good for our souls. It's good for our souls to give back and contribute in ways where we don't always see the direct response from that. We all have that friend who's not generous, right? And the way they treat their money is also the way they treat their friends. So I invite you to be generous. There's also a little cash bucket over there, so feel free. And now it's come time for our heartbreak section. So those are those challenges that we are navigating, those things that we sometimes feel like we have to go through alone. But when we share it in the group, we're giving everyone else an opportunity to walk it with us. Again, if you're joining us online, you can either drop it in the chat on YouTube, or you can have your case aide at Sober Living send it over to us as well. And there's always a pause in heartbreaks. So when there is a pause after someone shared, I just invite you all to pray for them and pray that they find a way to navigate through that season.
I wanted to send out a prayer for a friend who lost their dog and had to put him down, so prayers for them.
Absolutely.
I'd like to send out a prayer for a friend who I believe is in the midst of a dark relapse. I'm not sure, but yeah, prayers and it makes it out alive.
My name is David. I was kind of like in a dark moment, dark phase a little bit. I've been here for about just a year now in Chicago, and although that I've achieved many goals, I still haven't achieved just consistency, and so I'm kind of like at a point within my life of trying to do something different, because I don't really like to share at meetings, especially big meetings, because I'm afraid of what people might think, and I like to keep it a little private. But just a little bit prayers for me. I'm still trying to navigate which ways or which path to go, because I need to I'm kind of like at a point where I need to make a change. So, thanks.
This is Joe. My sister Louise, she's my older sister. She has stage 4 cancer, and she's going through the treatment this time. And I know she's scared. I can feel it. So that's all.
Just want to send up a small prayer and some thoughts for the people in Iran that have no connection to anything that's going on with kids, families, etc. Just thinking of them.
I'll add on to that and include the people of Gaza and the West Bank. And I wasn't going to say this, but my boss, even though she's OCD and neurotic, she is a good woman at the end of the day. She has 2 Yorkies that she's had for years, and one got really sick recently. She's been spending so much money on the medicine and the doctor's appointments. And she went to a trip to New Orleans. She even brought my dog back, a dog toy from New Orleans. And she took her birthday off, which was on the 9th, and her dog started foaming at the mouth, and she had to put him down on her birthday.
Ooh. And thank you for everyone who shared. And if there's something that maybe you didn't feel comfortable sharing in the group, I know someone mentioned that sometimes that can be hard. You can always talk to me or Shelly or Matt or Cholpa or Andy or other Matt. Honestly, I could probably list half the room, right? Imagine Ryan and Al and Ed and all these people. It's a room full of people that really do care for one another. And that's one of my favorite things about Free, is just a group of human beings that care deeply. So feel free to reach out. One thing about these challenging seasons, we're wrapping up the Learning to Walk in the Dark, is a lot of times we think we're alone and we're not. That there's a lot of people that are just willing to show up for you. But sometimes you just gotta let them know that you need it. So don't hesitate to reach out and ask. So Thank you for everyone for coming tonight. We'll close with a group prayer here in a minute, but remember, if it's your first time, find Shelly and she'll hook you up with some sick merch. We're here every Saturday night, and so come back, bring your friends, invite others. Thank you all for joining. And now, let's closing prayer. It looks like whenever I uploaded it, it didn't upload perfect, so we'll just do it just like that. I think the first word is just God. So God, for those of us walking through heavy seasons, give us the courage to keep going one more day. For those who feel stuck in darkness, remind us that nothing in this life stays the same forever. Help us trust the slow work of healing, the quiet shift of the seasons, and the light that begins to rise even when we cannot see it yet. And as we choose this place, give us the strength to carry hope for ourselves and for each other. Amen. Thank you all for coming.